Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third episode of The Unfamiliar Shift. This week, we're focusing on boutique coffee, my favorite topic. This is a production of BLLA and StayBoutique. I'm Ariela Kiradjian, a partner and CEO of BLLA and the co-founder of StayBoutique. So let's first get into what does boutique mean? So everyone has that question, right? What is boutique? What's a boutique hotel? What's a boutique business? So let's first talk about the adjective. This is how BLLA defines boutique. Boutique is a business that offers a curated service, product, or experience that is one of a kind. Typically, it has a defined and differentiating point of view and provides a memorable impression due to its distinct approach. And then another big word that's involved in our industry a lot, and that's lifestyle. So here's the BLLA official definition. Lifestyle is the distinguishing way one lives, including the style, attitudes, and possessions of an individual, group, or culture. So now let's put those two together. So what is the boutique lifestyle? The boutique lifestyle, it's someone who enjoys a boutique lifestyle and wants a specialized, curated service, product, or experience that reflects their modern values and helps support their lifestyle ideals. This can be a business with cultural impact or category innovation, providing a unique sensorial experience or something that simply makes people's lives better. From environments to new-to-world products and services, the only bounds boutique knows are those of the imagination. So first we have that, and now let's just talk a little bit about who we are, the producers of this weekly episode series. So BLLA, the Boutique Lifestyle Leaders Association, we're the official association for the world's boutique lifestyle leaders. We're also the original hub supporting boutique and independent businesses since 2009. It's been 11 years now, wow. We also value leadership, advocacy, and education. StayBoutique is our new brand. We've kind of been figuring out what to do with it. It's been trademarked for like 10 years now, and we're finally realizing that this is how we connect these boutique businesses to the consumers, to the guests who want to live that boutique lifestyle. So what is StayBoutique? We're content curators. We live the best in boutique with our guides, our trends, and our happenings. We're collaboration connectors. We're providing the community opportunities to be discovered. And lastly, we're connoisseurs of cool. We're a hub for the daring pioneers and businesses in the boutique community. And also the cherry that you see, you're gonna start seeing that a lot. That represents how daring a boutique business is, how daring someone who wants to live the boutique lifestyle is. So instead of having stars, we have a cherry. It shows that you're authentically boutique. So that can be for a hotel. So you have that boutique experience overnight, or it can be with coffee shops. You have that experience while sipping a cup of coffee and experiencing a really cool environment. So with that, a couple of reminders. I'm gonna sound like a vlogger. Hit that subscribe button. We have a YouTube channel. This recording will be up on YouTube in a few days. Follow us on social media. We would love to engage with you, also with all of our speakers. And also put our email in your inbox. We provide relevant news for the boutique industry. And use the hashtags, #BoutiqueStrong and #SaveBoutiqueHotels to show that you stand with boutique amid all of this. And last but not least, we're a community. The boutique sector has and always will be a family. Together, we reinvented what a hotel is, and even through a crisis, we will continue our innovations. And that is why we started this series called The Unfamiliar Shift. Its purpose is to showcase great examples of adaptation to what we call the new paradigm in the boutique community. And with that, I'm so excited for today's panel. We have amazing guest stars. First, Bluestone, who's the founder and CEO of Bluestone Lane. We have Colby Barr, the co-founder of Verve Coffee. Colby's been on our stages quite a few times now, as well as our amazing co-host, Amy Jakubowski. She's the founder of AEJ Collective. And me, Ariela Kiradjian, your other co-host. Amy, why don't you start us off?
Hi, everyone. I don't know if you have the screens on. How everybody's their Friday is doing well, and they've had a great week. I know we're been sequestered, but I love ending our Fridays with these great positive conversations. And we had a call yesterday with Nick and Colby, and I have to tell you, it went longer than what this hour we have here. So I think you'll be very excited. What I would like to do is I would like to ask both Nick and Colby to introduce themselves. Give us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up? Tell us a little bit about your company and how you fell in love with the whole coffee process. Nick, why don't you get started? Because you're
Sure.
popped up.
Thank you, Amy. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone who's joining. Thanks for having us on. My name's Nick Stone. I'm the founder and CEO of Bluestone Lane. Originally from Melbourne, Australia, moved to New York in late 2010. Bluestone Lane is an Australian influenced coffee and hospitality brand. We launched our first store in July 2013 in Midtown, New York City. And since then, we've grown pretty strongly. We've opened 55 units across 8 markets. We're headquartered in New York, but I live in Los Angeles, commuting between the cities, not so much anymore. But we really are heavily influenced by the independent coffee culture that you find in Australia. It's a market that doesn't have the big brands. It's a market in which Starbucks failed. It's very sophisticated, very boutique, independent driven, and where coffee, food, and I think more than anything, like service and this notion of connecting with people every day as part of your daily ritual is really important. And that's what influenced Bluestone. It's also a well-known fact amongst the coffee circles that this is my first hospitality job. I never had any previous experience in hospitality. I was simply a customer, and Bluestone Lane essentially fulfilled a longing that I had for the taste of home that I thought would be well received in America, and that's me.
Fantastic! So glad to have you, Colby.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. My name's Colby Barr, and I'm the co-founder of Verve Coffee. And we're here in California mostly. We started in 2007. A friend of mine from college and I decided to start the company. I grew up here in Northern California. Parents farm pears and wine grapes. My whole thing with Verve since the beginning was just seeing an opportunity to bring amazing coffee to the people, being one of those people who ultimately was really wanting it, and then finding that purpose in helping kind of connect the dots for people to have that coffee. We're an independent company, independently owned and operated company, and we're based out of Santa Cruz. It's where I am right now, about a block from the beach. So sharing that with Nick's passion for being by the ocean. And we have stores in Los Angeles and San Francisco and Palo Alto, as well as 4 stores in Japan. And we just really exist to help connect people and make their days better by giving them the coffee that we think they really want. So thank you for having me.
I love that. Of course, and welcome back. I want to start off with, you guys really touched on your why, but tell us, how did you fall in love with, the coffee world? Because people say these days that they want to be, it's not just about, work or career, it's about being happy as well. And it seems like you both have done that, is found this balance of being happy, doing something you're so passionate about, but also building a business. Nick, let's start with you. How did you fall in love with the coffee world?
Well, it really stems back to the coffee culture that I was referring to earlier in Melbourne, where I'm from. People use coffee as such a social medium to connect. It's really it's a way to drive human connection. And I think in Australia has had a very social culture, and it probably, people spend a lot of time going to the pubs, and you hear about the Aussie pubs, which are influenced by the British. And then I think that's just moved into the cafe and coffee world, where it's democratized in such a big way because it's not alcoholic, it's available to everybody, it's more affordable. So Australia's coffee culture, and Melbourne's in particular, really was shaped pre and post World War II, when we had mass migration from Europe. We were a tea-based drinking culture, and then we flipped to this more coffee, and particularly espresso. We didn't really have a drip coffee culture. We still don't. And it was heavily influenced by mass Italian and Greek migration. And then it just continued to evolve. especially with the introduction of food and a more sophisticated breakfast and lunch offering. So some of these things that we people talk about all the time, like farm to table, and Colby might chuckle at this growing on a farm. Like in Australia, it's only farm to table. Like there's nothing else, you know. Like the produce is very fresh and sourced and it can come locally, but it comes from it's not mass processed, and you know, that combined with the coffee culture and this notion of providing an escape and a way to connect with colleagues or with friends or family, that evolved. And you know, I just could see when I moved to the States that Starbucks was so incredibly successful as the leader in commercializing espresso, but what had happened is that through their own success, they'd sort of commodified this notion of getting coffee. It wasn't really anything other than like providing someone with caffeine. Well, that's the way I felt in New York, and that's a very sort of binary way to look at it. But I didn't feel like I would ever be a local. I didn't feel like they would really know me, know my family, and I didn't feel like I would be prepared to invest in the relationship either, which is such a big part of being a local. So at Bluestone, we don't talk about customers, we talk about locals, because a local relationship is reciprocal. You know me and I know you. Yeah. And I just thought there was a way to have more personalization, a better quality product, absolutely, and accessing the best and the most passionate baristas in the market. And there's a lot of them, and it's absolutely incredible because it's a real artisan craft. And then this notion of much more sort of, I'd call healthy yet sophisticated yet accessible breakfast and lunch food, and that really inspired Bluestone, and you know, that's how we created the brand.
Oh, I love that. And I know, Colby, yours, maybe I've heard your story a few times now, it's a bit similar, but also tell us like how you fell in love with coffee, and specifically that craft coffee, boutique coffee, we call it. What led you to fall in love with it?
Yeah, sure. For me, falling in love with coffee was just simply just drinking it. I mean, everyone has their aha moments with different things, and most coffee people can tell you their aha moment where that one cup of coffee they had or something. And for me, it was one time when I tasted, I liked coffee in college, but I went there for practical reasons, for caffeine and a place to study and take up all their table space, which now I feel bad about. But you know, I drank cappuccinos because I didn't like milk. I didn't know if it was like a cool drink or whatever, you know, at the time. But I ended up getting introduced to someone poured me a cup of a really nicely roasted Ethiopian Yirgacheffe. And it was like an aha moment for me. And I realized that coffee was so much more than I had realized. And so that was ringing in my ear, along with this idea that, you know, my parents owned their own business, and I always wanted to start my own business. I'm really highly entrepreneurial. And so at some point they kind of came together, and I decided to get into coffee, but I always had that ringing in my ear that coffee is so much more than I thought it was. And there can be this discovery. So I instantly started sort of looking into, well, where does coffee come from? What makes it different? And then, of course, these parallels to growing up in agriculture and grapes and denominations of origin and, you know, different regions. And it kind of rang true. And I just started chasing really coffees around the world. I was our original coffee buyer, and that was part of my big passion. And, you know, on that side of it, on the farm, what we call farm level, on the producer side, I really became enamored with how different coffees can be and how to go discover and bring those gems from Ethiopia or Colombia or wherever to the people, mixed with a love for service and product, atmosphere. We love retail design. I've been, you know, subscribed to Dwell Forever magazine. So we and really trying to bring up service models that are different, hospitality that's different, which, yeah, so kind of all that just gelled together and really became my fuel for Verve.
I love that. Well, Amy, I bet that like you were like, ooh, design, because that's all of Amy's world.
Although I'm sure everybody's getting sick of my background every Friday on this one. We'll have to redesign it each week.
Well, I have new flowers for mine this week, so all the roses came out.
Just bring out my famous coffee mug. Colby, you were just talking about this. You both touched on it a little bit as you described your businesses. And Colby, you've actually spoken on the BLLA and StayBoutique stages a few times. Can you share some thoughts with our live audience now as to why you think boutique gourmet coffee has risen so quickly in the market space?
You know, depending on the day or year, I will tell you it has or hasn't evolved quickly. We've been around for 10 years and it's still, you know, just kind of catching on, I feel like, and there's still incredible opportunity. But I think what it is coffee is a daily ritual. I mean, the number of people, it's one of the most consumed beverages in the world. And so it's something so many people participate in, and so many people, it's such an important part of their day. It's very, very personal. And I think what has happened is there's been a quickening of the access to great coffee. And like a lot of things in life, once you see something, you can't unsee it. And once you taste a really great cup of coffee, you can't untaste that. And then that becomes this new norm. So I think great coffee more and more has just become the new norm. I mean, to give them credit, even Starbucks went under Schultz's regime, you know, launching these reserve roasteries around the world was a big statement on their part that they saw this as something important, as well as, you know, it wasn't long ago, it was only a few years ago, really, where we would always talk about how we were surprised how some of the best restaurants in the world had just finished with terrible coffee. And now that's changed a lot. So you're just starting to see the new norm. It's sort of it being ostracized as being this cool kid thing that was for hipsters with crazy mustaches and suspenders. I feel like that's sort of faded away, and it is becoming more accessible, I think in large part to people making it more accessible on a service point of view, and like Nick's saying, bringing food into it and making it for the people, and not just this exclusive cool kid club, which I think turned people off. But I mean, my mom drinks amazing coffee. My dad, who's like an old school Folgers salt of the earth farmer guy, signs up and drinks our Ethiopians now. I mean,
I love it.
It's sort of just breaking through, but I think it's just, you know, stacking on each other, and it's just starting to hit a little bit of an inflection point.
I see. Nick, what do you see with that in terms of like the Australian coffee rise? But like, you know, you started in New York. Why New York? How do you see this type of curated coffee, you know, growing so quickly?
Well, I agree with Colby's sentiments. I think that there has been somewhat rapid growth from a Delta point of view, but it's off a very low base. I still think we're very early in the game, which makes this space quite exciting. If you compare, I would say, the saturation of sort of premium coffee in Australia, or the penetration of premium coffee in Australia versus the US, they're miles apart. You know, they really are. Which Australia is a very small country, has a big land mass that's small population. But I do think that if you look at that market, people like Colby, I think would feel very, very, and myself would feel very excited about the potential for better quality. Not only just the product itself, but just the total experience, the service, the food, the atmosphere of the space. I think there's just a chance for it to be elevated and for it to grow quite dramatically. So, you know, I think for us, we started in New York because that's where I was based, and, you know, it was out of necessity, and I was living there and working in completely in finance, completely other industry. And, you know, when I worked in banking, like we often had sort of long, unpredictable hours. So the two things that we would have as part of our ritual would be, we'd all go as a team and go to our local for coffee in the morning, and we'd do it again in the afternoon. And that truly was an escape. It was escape from the office. It was a way to socialize, just take our mind off work. And when you walked into our local, you'd be recognized. And what I observed, which was quite profound in New York, was there was a lot of establishments, a lot of small businesses that were absolutely incredible at recognition. And people were very passionate about them. But they were very passionate about their mani and pedi place. They were very passionate about their wash and fold. They were very passionate about their hairdresser. But they weren't particularly passionate about their coffee shop. And I was like, wow, this is so different from the way it is back home. Like, everyone has their local. And in Melbourne, you could have, like, as an example, a Bluestone, a Verve, a Blue Bottle, a Stumptown, a Bluestone, but all on the same street, all next to each other, serving that sort of quality coffee. But everyone has their own local. And I think it's because of that human connection piece. It's that recognition piece. And I just thought there has to be a way that when you walk in, you feel great. Everyone makes you feel great. And, you know, I was just used to drinking great quality coffee. You know, I'd never have burnt coffee. And, you know, I don't have the palate that, say, Colby does, but my palate is educated enough to know what tastes great, what doesn't, and different varietals. And, you know, I just thought that there has to be a way where we can provide something that's better. And I had observed that there was investment going in the space. So when I was here in 2010, I noticed there was some venture capitalists investing in the space. And that was a bit of an awakening. I was like, wow, well, these guys are investing and these business brands are growing. The market must have an opportunity here. And the more you'd study, you realize that the market was being driven by very much like this millennial group, this just Gen Y millennial, who saw Starbucks as not particularly aspirational, and they didn't love the experience and they wanted something better. And let's be honest, like, the price point in Starbucks and versus a Bluestone is de minimis. Like, Starbucks is not cheap. It doesn't lead with cost leadership. So I think people were doing this value reconciliation and suddenly thought, wow, like, I would rather go, the product's better here, the service is better, it's more curated, the atmosphere, the look and feel. And, you know, I think that led to starting one, which was out of self-necessity around the corner from where I worked, in a subterranean office building with no street signage, no visibility. And I became a student of the industry before we launched the first one, and just to study as much as I could off to low base without any bad habits. So that was one thing that helped us, is like, my views were completely unbridled. Like, I didn't have any processes to follow. You know, it's like, you know, sometimes it's easier to teach someone to play golf who've never swung a golf club before than like try and correct the bad swing. But, you know, it started like that. And I guess I was correct in the assumption there must be more people like myself and more like my wife that were looking for a more premium experience, a more curated boutique experience where, it would become your local, and there would be that reciprocal relationship, and that's how it effectively flourished. And that's, you know, 6.5 years later, that's how we've grown.
I love that. I mean, it's really about what you were saying, like that boutique experience, which is why we're really big about not saying, oh, you're a hotel, but no, you provide a boutique experience, but it's like overnight, or you can, you know, serve coffee and tea, but it's about this, what we like to say is the culture that you're creating. So we're thinking that the boutique side of different businesses, it's like what you sell comes second, but the culture that you're creating, you're becoming like a cultural epicenter, which is like what you just said, where you're gathering all these locals and you know everyone and you're always coming here. I'm a New Yorker, and yes, I have my diehard dry cleaners, tattoo shop, nail salon, everyone. Also, by the way, I saw a great chat come in. Gene, I see you. He wants a large white on Bondi Beach in Sydney. So
I was going to
right, there we go.
Our survey question. I think our survey question, or unless we want to know, is what is your coffee of choice, audience? Like, throw it up in the chat so we can see. What kind of
we want to see.
Where would you like to be drinking it right now?
So what's your coffee drink, and where do you want to be right now drinking that cup of coffee? Let's see what comes in.
Yeah, we'll see what comes in.
I think one thing I'll jump in, Ariela, and I don't mean to hijack this, but I think you stated a really interesting point, and we talk about it. We've talked about it for the last year, maybe last 2 years at Bluestone, which is concept of boutique at scale. So I think there's a point where you can still be very boutique, but have some scale. It doesn't have to be a one-off. And I think Colby has been able to achieve that with Verve. And why we're so focused on it is, you know, to be able to grow and to scale, but remain boutique, you have to develop a brand, and a brand is reinforced through a consistency. It's a continuity. It's an expectation that no matter what store you go to or whatever product you receive, that it is consistent with your value proposition. There is no brand if one Bluestone cafe is great and one's terrible. If LA region's great and New York's terrible. That consistency is so vitally important. But boutique at scale for operators like Colby and I, which are they're bigger than a one-off store, but they're still tiny when you consider Starbucks has 39,000 stores and 40% of all coffee shops in America. We're just a pimple on the whale, but it's very, very important for us to provide growth opportunities, job opportunities, to introduce more people to better quality propositions by achieving this boutique at scale concept. Because no doubt about it, like once you get to a certain size, you do get some efficiencies. Now, the risk is obviously you don't fulfill in your promise about that consistency, but that is the big challenge, I think, for boutique coffee operators like Verve and Bluestone to be able to deliver. And that's the big challenge. But that also is the wonderful opportunity. And I think probably that's something that I'm so motivated by, to be able to bring Bluestone to more parts of America. But I know that it has to be as good as the first store in New York or the third store that we have in San Francisco.
I agree with that. And that's why that's why we came up with the cherry, is because we wanted to showcase those that were authentic. We're not saying you have to have one property or be under 50 rooms. That was I'm talking more on hospitality here. But I know with coffee shops, there's, other ground rules, but it was like how small you are, or this, that, and that didn't matter. It was, what experiences do you provide? What is your why? What are your values? How are you different from other people? And you can grow at scale. And I think, again, talking more on the hospitality side, though, is that there are people who do it really, really well, like the Ace, the Huxton, and there are those that don't, where they become obsessed with expansion. It's all about the money. You lose the passion. So I agree. It's how to scale it, but don't lose the passion. Don't lose who you are and your identity as well. We got a question coming in. Do you see a franchising model for the growth of your business, Nick?
I think COVID's really interesting, because I think it dramatically makes you think about your business model and what the new normal is going to look like. I wouldn't say that franchise or licensing is out the door for us. I think with the right operator, with the right training and controls, it can be done effectively. I think there's this badge that it can't be. Well, there's plenty of examples of even what you call boutique hotels that are effectively franchised, right? That the freehold owner of the property has licensed the brand from someone to flag at a particular hotel. I think it can exist for Bluestone. It just needs a lot of thought, a lot of care. But in some respects, like, I do think that a franchisee is going to treat your brand like it's theirs. They're going to own it. They take the risk and they take the return. But before COVID, when we had such a low unemployment rate, right? We had more beyond full employment. In New York City, it was 2.9%, 3%. We didn't have an abundance of talent that was banging down the door saying, I want to run this like it's my own. We had so many amazing team members, but we weren't flush, and it was very competitive for talent. The same in San Francisco and the same in DC. Franchise does potentially give that opportunity to bring in someone who takes all the risk and return and treats it like their own. And I'm not dismissive of it. I know a lot of people are, like, it's just a blanket statement, but I'm open-minded. And I think that if 1, 2, 5, 10, like, it's probably, the risk is very limited. Maybe 1,000 is where you're getting really wobbly, but I don't know. Colby, what do you think?
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think as a model, franchises are really interesting to see how they can be successful or not. Even like the movie The Founder, right? With and actually speaking to that, I mean, to Nick's point, in that situation, all is about the operator. And I know it was a movie, but just the idea that the people that Ray Kroc in the beginning thought were going to work for them because they had money and they, were, quote, smart, were not the people that actually took the most care. It was the people that had the most to lose that really needed it, that were the people that really took the best care of it, which it can resonate with me because that's how we started Verve. I mean, it was myself and my business partner, and like no money in the bank, and we built the store ourselves, and every customer that walked by was like life or death. And so that's something we've never shaken from Verve. So I think that is interesting as a concept. For us, it's probably not in the cards. It's not something we've really ever talked about, but we're, as far as store counts, we're still at something like so extremely manageable, and our growth rate in retail is, maybe on a different trajectory than Nick at Bluestone, who have been really successful, at their expansion. We've had a slower pace in our retail, intentionally, but I think so. It just hasn't really been something that's come up other than just more academically or theoretically, which is always interesting to discuss. Yeah.
And I also want to get your viewpoint though on authentically growing, because every time we have a conference, I make sure that that's a session, because I think that's one of the top 5 questions we get from our member community. I quickly just wanted to get your thoughts on how to expand authentically.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many years ago this was, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I got to speak at the Good Food Awards in San Francisco with Alice Waters and some other people. And I got to, and I led a discussion. Gave a talk or a speech or whatever on, how good food is good business for us. Mm-hmm. And I think, and the idea that there just been something published in the San Francisco paper called The Artisan's Dilemma. And it was, can artisans and craft enterprises scale? And the person who wrote this was sort of saying that you can't. And it really pissed me off because I totally disagree. And I think that's not fair to say that in order to be craft, artisan, boutique, you're like cursed to have to stay small and just like you
have to be broke just all the time.
Yeah, you can't, you can't grow. You can't do this. And I do fundamentally, to Nick's point also, I fundamentally disagree with that, and that I think you can scale craft and boutique, and that you can scale culture. And I think it's not easy. And I think it heavily relies on the strength of the brand and the culture, which is also based on the kind of core values of the company, and that those are never wavered from in order to scale. Because as you start scaling, and if you bring in outside capital, sometimes, not necessarily, those different people can be in leadership, and different people can start making decisions, and different people with different ideas, those fundamentals, those core values that define your brand and who you are and your why, which is why people love you in the beginning, can start getting parked. But for us, there's a lot of people in coffee I've always looked up to, for sure, in the boutique world, that back in the day, people that inspired us, even all the way up to, Howard. But for us, it's always been more inspired also by companies outside of coffee. And I look at like Patagonia is one company that we look at a lot. I got to go spend a day on their campus this last year and hear from some of it was an amazing experience. And hear from their chief philosophy officer. And, I went to school in Chico, California, and Sierra Nevada's up there, still independently owned and operated, or as they write on their bottle, family owned and argued over. But so those are the types of companies that really inspire me, are people that have been able to really scale, but also retain their core values and have the leverage and power within the company to exercise them, and not have to sacrifice core values in order to grow. So I think it is possible, and I think it is a fine line to not blow it. And it really comes down to core values, brand, and leadership.
I see.
There's been a couple questions that came in, and they were sort of charted on what we wanted to try to touch a bit on today. So I'm going to try to bridge them all together so we can kind of answer them in one shot. Both of you in your boutique space have been able to adapt very quickly to this, what we're going to call the temporary environment that we're living in. So let me give you the two-point question. How have you been operating in this model? How do you see this playing out long-term? And Colby in particular, how does this kind of tie into that new drink that you launched with the flash brew. Do you see this as part of the norm?
Sure, I'll take a quick stab at this and hand over. We've been operating, we closed all of our retail stores a month ago, is the decision we chose for various reasons, completely. And we had been really selling through our grocery channels, through our other wholesale accounts that were still open, as well as online. We kind of have taken this omni-channel approach to our brand, so we kind of push all fronts forward, retail, wholesale, digital, etc., and ready to drink, as you mentioned. And we, saw a spike in, of course, grocery, and some of our wholesale clients that stayed open were, busier than usual, and our web was up dramatically online. We did just open a couple of our stores this last week, and today we're opening almost all of the rest of our stores for order ahead. Yeah, for order ahead and pickup. Oh. So where it goes forward from here, I think, Nick already has an app. I mean, Nick can speak to this probably better than I can, but in that he's been doing it longer. But the digital world, we've just accelerated like 10 years in digital adoption. So I think where it goes forward is order ahead and app, and sort of the digital interface for your retail is super critical. And then to how it relates to the drink we launched, the flash brew. Yeah, I mean, I think where craft coffee is going for scale is the ability for it to be in more places than just in only a retail store with an amazing barista, of which is our core. It's where we come from. Mm-hmm. So we'll never compromise on that. But I think, looking into instant, looking into craft single serve options beyond the K-Cup, and looking at ways to solve coffee that can go with people places or show up in other places without a barista and be at that same caliber, like our mm-hmm. flash brew, which is basically a hot brewed flash chilled cold coffee that we can. It's a proprietary thing, but and the ability for, I think, RTD, ready to drink, in regards to grocery and in hospitality. I mean, it's still just barely starting, and there's tons of room to grow in that arena.
And Nick, how have you adapted, and what do you see your long term?
Well, we have currently 14 of our 52 stores open, and we, on March 20th, we moved to 100% contactless curbside pickup and also delivery. So we prohibited anyone entering the store using the bathroom, ordering other than via our order ahead function on our app. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, we put in a year's worth of work in getting it all ready and getting it stable. And it was funny, we're actually going to launch this big campaign in March, offering two trips to Australia for an amazing experience. Great Barrier Reef, Melbourne, Great Barrier Reef, like curated all the best restaurateurs, all things that, the team and myself had called all our friends saying, let's make this a once in a lifetime. And then it gets scuttled, but then it launches with out of necessity due to COVID. And I was adamant I did not want any of our locals in the store exposing any of our staff. So March 20, I was in New York the week prior. I just got back, and that was the call. I just said, that's it, and we shut some regions completely. San Francisco shut straight away, and it was the first to really implement the shelter in at home or shelter in place mandate. So then and most of our stores there are all in the central business district. So that was it, done. So, I think I agree with Colby's sentiments. I think part of me is like very, very sad because Bluestone was created for this, and we really are a human connection company. And, I love that experience of service. And, I'm an experience junkie. I didn't come from the product purity land like a lot of these coffee icons in the US are. They love coffee like the finest wine, and They know everything about the vitrials and notes, and they're just so obsessed. And I admire people who care to that degree. For me, I really wanted this human connection. I wanted this experience, and that's what's really shaped Bluestone Lane in particular. And really, COVID's going to disintermediate that quite dramatically. So we've got to face the new norm, the new reality. Certainly, technology has been expedited. The analogy is correct. Like, where we probably end up in 5 years has now happened in 5 days. And, it's very much, I think, going to be consistent with what we're doing right now, with the addition of some outdoor seating, which I think will be the first thing to happen. But it's going to be very challenging because the unit economics on restaurants don't really work if you're only able to have 50% of your seats occupied, or in Texas right now, it's 25%. So, it's a completely new ball game, and you're just going to have to adapt as best as you can. We are a big believer in the omni-channel as well, similar to what Colby said. We've seen dramatic increase in direct to consumer via e-com. We saw great growth in Fresh Direct and Amazon. We don't have any grocery CPG. We have a ready-to-drink product, but we've just sold it purely online and at our stores. But I think that if you do have a brand, and if you do provide an experience, and people introduce your product, and they've got this connection, then I do think you've got a good opportunity to do well in CPG, particularly in the markets where you have that retail tangibility.
Yeah.
So, but it's going to be an enormous challenge, and but I think that as Colby said, like to be authentic and to develop a real brand, it comes down to what your mission is, what your values are, what your true purpose is, and I don't think we're away from that at all. And I think, if anything, I've seen a further reinforcing of it in such a dramatic way through the last 5 weeks. The way that the teams come together, the selflessness, our Fuel for Heroes campaign, and how successful that's been. It's been nothing but humbling. And I'm so gracious and grateful for the way that the team's rallied around, and also how empathetic our locals and customers have been. It's never going to work perfectly in dealing with a situation that's this dramatic and this fast. But the outpouring and support's been really touching, and given us a lot of optimism and hope that we can get through it and resume the business again. It may not look the same. I think that a lot of owners and entrepreneurs are going to face with the same challenge that pre-COVID, the business probably not going to look the same, but you've got to keep fighting, and you've got to make the most out of a challenging situation. That's what we're focused on.
Sure.
We always say there's a bright light at the end of this tunnel, and I think it's those that really stick to their true values. I think for me personally, I know that I'm all about like boutique businesses, obviously, but I'm loving them even more now. Like, I am like not going to go to that giant gym, whatever they're doing. I'm going to go to my little tiny yoga studio in New York. They're doing their digital classes. I am like die-hard fan, buying the merchandise, buying everything. I just want to get engulfed into their culture even more. I do, because we don't have that much time left. It's going by too quickly. I want to bridge this into the hospitality world, because that's where most of our viewers are coming from. Guys, we're focusing on these guys too, because there's so many similarities between what Colby and Nick are doing with boutique coffee shops and what you're doing with your boutique hotels. You got to see that. I think, Nick, it was you who said it. You got to look at inspiration from outside of your industry too. But let's get into hospitality, because you look at boutique, you have Starbucks, and you got Marriott, and then you got Verve and Bluestone, and you have the Huxton and Seidel Groups, Nomad, these like boutique brands, right? What do you see? How have you been working with them? What have been some hurdles that you've come across? Talk to us, Colby. How's your experience been?
For me, the kind of, as we were discussing yesterday, I feel like it's really hot and cold is how I would describe it. I do feel as a whole, I've been surprised that the hospitality industry, even at the boutique level, has been one of the last movers, I feel like, as an industry to pivot to boutique coffee. Restaurants have already done it. Campuses, offices and campuses are already doing it. Groceries doing it. I mean, Target is doing it. Like, everyone's doing it. And so I feel like it's been surprising that not every boutique hospitality place is doing it, along with even greater or larger ones. But so for me, it's been hot and cold. And the places that we seem to have had the most success are the places that I would say get it, and they're seeing the intrinsic value of the brand and the whole concept, other than just a line item for the F&B director to look at as a cost replacement for, well, I have a contract with so-and-so and they'll give me this equipment and this is the coffee and this is the price. So, I also feel like it's a little bit of in a way, I feel like it's underestimating your clientele to think that either they won't notice or that they don't care or that coffee's not important, because otherwise, why would you not solve for it? So for us, I feel like it's the people who it's more like the, the partnership and kind of promotion partnership, the strategy people at boutique hospitality have been the people that come to us and say, we want to put you in here, and we want you to tell us how to design it, and we want to buy those cool espresso machines you have, even though they're $20,000 each, and we want to do this. And I would say they're being really, really, those are the people also being the most successful, because they're embracing it holistically, other than just swapping out an air pot and then being frustrated that it, quote, costs more. I would also like to just note for any F&B buyers out there, when you're looking at a price of coffee of wholesale per pound, like Nick was talking about, like, maybe they want 8, you're at 12. And like, how do you solve for that? 20 cups of coffee easily out of a pound of coffee. So for every $1 per pound cost increase, it's 5 cents is your cost per cup, per drink. So especially in a restaurant environment, you're talking about 10, 20 cent difference that you could easily make up. You can easily make up for those costs in charging for that. Yeah. It always seems like a greater stretch than it is if you actually crunch the numbers, which is funny because usually you're getting sweated because everyone's crunching the numbers so hard, but I feel like they're missing the forest for the trees on it. Brand-wise for sure, and value add, and even economically at times.
I'm sorry, and I know, Amy, we must be super surprised, because with boutique, like, they will put in money into these types of experiences. So when we were talking yesterday, I was like, wait, what? That's weird. And because coffee, it is super important to the clientele, because they are the boutique lifestyle connoisseurs. They want things that are unique. They don't want K-cups, sometimes not even espresso. They definitely don't want a Starbucks cup. Sorry, Starbucks out there. But yeah, it's very, very surprising. And also, Jean, thanks for chatting again. They were saying that you guys should also be talking with these other boutique brands as well. We've had past speakers, Albright, Neuhaus, like the co-working spaces too. We were thinking that it should be on your radar. Thanks, Jean, for that chat. Nick, what's your take on Bluestone working with boutique hospitality?
Yeah, I think Colby summed it up really nicely. I think it's a shift in the mindset from being cost conscious to being growth orientated. I think premium coffee adds to the amenity of a hotel, undoubtedly. And it's a lot more affordable than building a new gym or a bigger pool. I think if you've got to look at your core customer, and if your core customer in your hotel is a young person who's traveling for business, and they're from a high density city, an urban city, then they're probably more likely to be interested in premium offerings, and that includes coffee. So if our core customer at Bluestone is aged between 25 and 40 and skews female, right? So if that's who you're going after as a business traveler, then it makes perfect sense. I also think that to be premium, as we talked about with a brand, like to be a premium brand, like everything needs to be consistent at that level. And I think skipping on certain things for cost doesn't make a lot of sense. And I also wholeheartedly agree, and I've had this conversation with thousands of beverage directors, that the differential per pound between a mass chain brand and a boutique is so de minimis. You're talking about one extra coffee. Now you're telling me that a Verve or a Bluestone is not going to engender one extra coffee per pound. Like, it's, of course it will. And not only will it drive acquisition, but it'll drive retention. And the margin in coffee, from purely the gross profit margin, excluding labor and excluding OPEX and rent, is very high. It is high. So I think it is shifting that mindset. And, there's a lot of prioritization put on other things. And it has always been strange to me why you can stay in a hotel for hundreds and hundreds of dollars a night and it just offers K-cups. It's just, it seems inconsistent with the impression. But it is a shift from cost to growth. And I think more than ever, the hotel industry, like the hospitality, is going to be under extreme revenue pressure in this new world. And everyone needs to look at how they can amenitize or improve the value proposition of what they offer. And I think premium coffee is without a doubt something that's additive, and the incremental investment is really immaterial. And I think the payback is there in a matter of days, not years.
Yeah.
Like a similar conversation we have in design. Design drives revenue. These lifestyle brands ultimately do drive revenue. And I think in this new market, correct me if I'm wrong, there's an amazing amount of opportunity to really collaborate and bring like-minded lifestyles together, both on the hotel space and the coffee space, right? To kind of help synergize and promote revenue for both.
Absolutely.
And I was just going to interject one thing here too, tying on to what you're saying, what Nick was saying, which is, in the post-COVID world, I mean, personal experiences and personal service will never be more important in probably the history of in our entire lives than it will be in the next 12, 24, 36, whatever, 5 years.
Yeah.
Because everyone is being reprogrammed and is having this once in a century or more reset for what is important to them, and they're being confined in their homes. People are making coffee themselves, they're spending more time with family, and they're having more and more intimate and personal experiences than probably anyone has ever had, and definitely as a collective. And I think then to now, once the doors open up and they pull the curtains back, for people to leave and then go out and pay to go into another shelter in someone else's place and to pay for that, I just think the personal touches are going to be more important than ever and are going to pay dividends more than ever. And coffee is one of the most personal experiences people have in their daily life, and it's one of the most inexpensive parts of an experience you can have. I mean, the most expensive cup of coffee we sell on average in our stores, which, just on our corporate menu might be $7 or $8. And it's like, oh my God, $8 for a cup of coffee, you crazy. But just an average pint of beer somewhere or a glass of wine is $8 all day long, not getting to the best in the world. So it's a very, 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 very affordable luxury to get the best in the world. And it's something so personal that I just see that aspect is coming together as a great opportunity for boutique hospitality to just check that box. And I think it really will elevate the personal experience for hospitality brands, especially post-COVID.
Definitely. And someone was talking about education too. I think it's all about, we have to educate, the point of contact at the hotel, whether it's the F&B director. But Amy, maybe it's the designers and with boutique hotels that really need to have more of a say of the amenities involved with the hotel and, collaborate directly with the owners, because these, like you were saying yesterday, it's there's these, lifestyles, and you both have this following. Amy, you were saying this yesterday. How can you work together, cross-promoting in a way? I think that's what the boutique hotels really need to see. And of course, obviously it's the revenue side, of course, but there's probably a way to look at it where it's really this win-win situation.
We our communities come together in this time of crisis, right? Where people are donating and coming together and support each other. And I think that there's going to be a different mindset, just like you're saying, Colby, about the personal touches. I think there's going to be a real sense of community and supporting one another, whether that looks like a collaboration or how that looks. I think is still to be learned, but I think that's what we're kind of looking forward to, is the next wave.
Yep, exactly. I mean, there have been people like I've been trying to like, collaborate with for years, and it's like now there's like this random email in my inbox. It is kind of that time where people are realizing who they want to be aligned with. They're kind of looking at what their identity is. That's what we're noticing on the boutique hospitality side, and true colors are coming out. I think that those that stay authentic, like we were saying, are the ones that are going to come kind of like, I don't know if I should say this, but like as a winner out of this. Those that are giving back, community-oriented, things like that. But I know our hour is almost up. Guys, Amy and I came up with so many more questions.
The audience doesn't even know the rest of the 3 pages that are here, but I don't know that we're going to get all of them.
Well, we might have to do like a round 2 of this eventually. But thank you, everyone. Thank you, Colby. Thank you, Nick, so much. Is there anything else you guys wanted to add in before we end this?
Yes. Actually, we'd like to end with, what is your inspiration and what positive thoughts can we leave Friday with as we go into our weekend?
I like that.
Yeah.
I right now, you can see I receive inspiration every day from just hearing people's stories and passions. But like right now, without a doubt, I'm taking like just tremendous inspiration from the healthcare heroes and first responders. So we launched this initiative, Fuel the Heroes, and we've donated 45,000 cups of coffee in the last 5 weeks, 6 weeks. And the messages, the videos, the notes have been absolutely overwhelming, because those on the front line are acting with such selfless disregard for their own health and those that they come into contact with, to ensure that we as a society can prosper and survive and get through it. And I think, if anything, like I'm just so I don't know how to even articulate it, but like that is without a doubt like keeping me inspired, that I have to be positive. I have to, realize that no matter the challenges I'm facing right now, they're probably immaterial versus what's happening in hospitals and and people have been affected and how they're dealing with it. So that's me right now.
Wow. Colby, what about you?
Yeah, I'm on the same page as Nick, that it's been humbling, the experience, and really kind of, obviously it's a tragic situation, but there's been beauty in it, just seeing how people have come together and to prove that both sides of the aisle can come together, and that people really can realize that there's sometimes that there's things more important than you. Mm-hmm. And the same thing with just, not enough emphasis can be put to frontline workers and the people that are out. I mean, from Instacart drivers to ER workers, and same thing. We've been trying to find ways to support them, and we're when we opened our stores, we have it where if healthcare workers can come in and they can get free cup of coffee from us, and not into our stores. Our stores aren't open inside, but yeah, they can come order up or order ahead. And then also we've been working on ways to get coffee to people working in hospitals as well, and had a couple initiatives. But yeah, I think it's just ultimately finding inspiration and really giving a lot of thanks to the all the people out there. Just really, I don't know. Yeah, I can't articulate it either. I mean, really risking it all for the greater good.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all so much. We're just going to end with a couple of reminders here. First, again, follow us. We want to engage with you. Email us, even if it's literally just hi, info@blla.org. I get a copy of everything. Would love to connect with everyone here. Please use the hashtags, #BoutiqueStrong, #SaveBoutiqueHotels. And now we've updated our little phrase. It's stay safe, stay healthy, and stay boutique. And I guess one last goodbye, everyone, as we enter the weekend. Thank you, Colby. Thank you, Nick. And thank you, Amy. 3rd episode now. We've been getting a great reaction from this series, and Amy and I, we love doing it. We've been having so much fun with this, and you guys were awesome. So we're, again, yes, exactly. Colby, you've heard this 5,000 times, but this is a movement. It's the boutique movement. This is the time that we are coming together. We have such a bright future together. I mean, on the hospitality side, guys, we reinvented what a hotel is. We can do so much together if we strategize and we stay authentic, and that's what that cherry represents with StayBoutique. So everyone, go on to your weekend, have a glass of wine, whatever you need, and we'll see everyone next week. Thank you, and a cup of coffee. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks.